Let's create a new grid, this time selecting the student ID grid type. So again, I'm in my grids in my educator admin or dashboard, and I'm simply going to click add new grid. Again, I have to give it a specific name. We'll call it student ID demo for the purpose of this video. And I will select the student ID grid type. Notice that again, I can create a custom flip code to give to my students, or I can just leave the code as is, and this will be the code that I give to my students to join the grid or access the grid. Now, student ID, let's talk a little bit more about that. When I select student ID and click next, what I do is I create unique ID numbers or ID codes for each of my students in my class. What's cool about the student IDs is that in addition to creating that individual unique ID code, it also generates a unique QR code for each student. So student ID, when would you choose this grid type? Well, if you were working with littles, imagine our pre-K, our kindergarten, maybe even our grade 1s, 2s, and possibly our grade 3s. Students who struggle with typing in their student email address, or for our students who may not be used to using the keyboard, possibly even for our ELL students. So what we do is we have to create these ID codes for our students for student ID grid types. Now, there are a couple of ways we can do this. I can download a template CSV file, which I've gone ahead and done. Let me pull that up. Notice that what I would do is I would just fill in the required information. So student's first name, last name, and I can create the ID code or ID number for each student. I could then go ahead and upload that CSV file here, or I can manually add students below. I'm going to go ahead and manually add a few students. Now I want you to notice that as I added in each student, I wasn't required to put their full name. I put their first name and last initial. For their identifier, because even our youngest students tend to know how to spell their name, I chose to use their name with their last initial as their identifier. Once I've entered in all my students manually or uploaded that CSV file, I would go ahead and click Next. Flipgrid now generates those student identifiers as well as a QR code. Check this out. Let's pull up Liam's QR code. So I can now print a tag that's specific to Liam that includes the flip code for the grid, his student ID if he wanted to type that in, or a QR code that he could simply scan to log in or access the grid instead of having to worry about remembering and typing his school email address. Now, once you've added all of your students and you've gone ahead and printed those QR codes, you could simply click Launch My Grid, all set, and again, your grid will open inside your educator dashboard.